Okay, we're up to Lamed Gimel, Lamed Beis at the bottom. Lamed Gimel, Lamed Beis at the bottom. One of the things you can't do on Yontif was Malbin Es Harofim. You can't go ahead and heat up the tiles. The Gemara wants to make of it. What's wrong? What's the reason you should not be able to heat up the tiles on Yontif? So Amar Rabbi Chana Amar Yochanan, Pacha Berofim Chadashim Askin. We're dealing with brand new tiles, and it's necessary to check them out. Says the top Rashi. If they're able to receive the heat, because they'll not poke, maybe they'll crack. In other words, this is a this is not makabah patish. It's tircha shleil tzarich. This is tircha shleil tzarich. It's not makabah patish. It's a tircha shleil tzarich. In other words, if you're going to do avoida that doesn't it may not, it's brand new and it may not work, so then you can't do it. You can't do it. It's a tircha shleil tzarich. Tircha doesn't necessarily mean I'm carrying 100 pounds. I mean, tircha is it's not a tircha shleil tzarich. So over here, if it's brand new and it hasn't been tested to receive the heat, you're talking that why it'll crack, and therefore you did it for nothing. However, the Imri law, others say if they shed sorich l'chasman, you have to seal them. You have to go ahead and make them hard. But it's like putting, like we spoke out the other day, it's putting the earthenware in the kiln. Until you put it in the kiln, it doesn't harden it. It's porous. So when you go ahead and put the ra'af and the tiles when you heat it up, it hardens it. That would be makabah patish. That would be tikkun mana. That would be fixing it. There's a difference. There's a difference in pshatim, as we'll see. Tanan Hassam, I'll give you a good example. How about this, guys? Let's say you have a brand from China. You get 30 tiles, right? 50 tiles. You do 5 of them, they don't crack. Some pashas, you will be able to go ahead and do it on Yontif, right? Because again, they don't crack. On the other hand, if it's hardening, it doesn't make a difference, right? If that's the final step, you won't be able to do it. That would be a difference between the two. Tan Hassam, we learned over there. Now, to understand this Gemara, there's a long Rashi over here. I'm going to save you, but let me fill you in on the facts. In Masechta Chulin, the third paragraph is called Eila Trefis. There are 18 trefis, that meaning that an animal will die within a year. If an animal has one of these 18 trefis, we have it won't live beyond a year. You shecht an animal, you find it has one of these trefis, that animal is inedible. It's not an avela anymore. The shchita did accomplish something. No longer is metama tumas maga or masa. You won't be metama tuma for carrying or touching, but it's a trefa, you can't eat it. That's now. There is, however, one trefa that the time span is a little shorter. That's called risuk evarim. If you have an animal, a chicken, something that falls off a roof, right, or is smashed against the wall or trampled upon, you have to wait 24 hours. In other words, if I shecht it within 24 hours, even if you boidik the simonim and everything is kosher v'yasha, you can't eat it. It's a treifa. Within that 24-hour period, it's a treifa. If it lasts beyond 24 hours, you don't have to worry that particular fall that I think go ahead and harm it. That's 24 hours, okay? So somehow the Gemara is going to go ahead and sushtel hardening bricks to risuk evarim. It's only the Gemara does. It's amazing to me how the Torah is all one. We're going from Hilchos Yantiv of hardening tiles to risuk evarim.
So that's the problem with the kaparas. They take the crates, they throw them off the truck.
No problem. I never do kaparas. I do coins.
I
Coins.
know. Those that do it have.
Yeah, they throw off the truck and they
take the crates, the guys, they throw it off the truck and deliver it to the kaparas place, and then they do the shchita, right?
I don't know. I'm not familiar. Where do you know this? Like I never heard this about my life. I get nothing with kaparas. Never did it. Never got near them. I once had a girl who came to me and said she shaved chicken for kaparas and whatever. It's a long story. I was almost arrested by PETA.
Did the chicken only chickens that have pays?
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, Tan Hassam, Darsa, if a person goes ahead and steps on a chicken, on a knife, a bird, Oisha Tarfa Bekaisel gets hacked against the wall, Oisha Ritzasa Behema, or an animal streises it, gores it, Umefarkeses, and now it flutters, it can't fly anymore. Vishasa me ace la ace, and you wait 24 hours, Vishachta, and it's Yeshachta Kshera. In other words, the risuk evarim, as opposed to the other ones, is a 24-hour once it's survived 24 hours, if it dies, it has nothing to do whatsoever with the occurrence that happened. There's nothing to do with that. That's the Chazal. Rashi uses listen. It's the Chachamim Sinai. It doesn't say Allah Sinai. It says Hakiblu the Chachamim from Sinai. That's the din. Amr Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yanai Mishum Rabbi Elazar ben Antignis says Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yanai in the name of Rabbi Elazar ben Antignis. Suricha bedika, right? You would need a bedika. In other words, after you shecht it, you still would have to do a bedika. After 24 hours is up, you still have to go ahead and do a bedika. Even after 24 hours, you'd have to go ahead and do a bedika. That's Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yanai's condition. The name of Rabbi Elazar. Yeah, normal shechita we do a bedika, but only in the things that we don't have. We have a reyasa in. Roiv animals are not treifus. The only reason we check the lungs is there's a reyasa in the lungs, that many lungs are not so kasha v'yasha. But we don't check for the other treifus. We don't check. If you would check, you know how expensive meat would be if you would check for all the treifus? You have to blow up, open the head and check the cranium and look at the kishkas. We don't, those we don't check. We only check the lungs, because there's a reyasa that animals have sirchus in scar tissue in the lungs. Okay, that's so over here. So he says batka. Now boy mine Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbi Seira mal l'shachta b'yantif. So you have this animal, right? And 24 hours have passed, and it's now yontif, and Eichel Nefesh, you're able to go ahead and shecht. Can you shecht the chicken? In other words, since it requires a bedika, there's like a reyasa in here, right? The 24 hours, forget about. That is done. But you're telling me, Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yanai, in the name of Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Antignis, you need to go ahead and check. Can you go ahead on yontif now and shecht? What's the shaila? Mi mechaskinon reusa b'yontif, ari machzik a reyasa and yontif. Says Rashi, b'gavo mishum chashasha isam malacha b'yontif. We're worried that maybe you may come to a malacha on yontif. Dilma mishtachas treifa. Maybe you'll find it a treifa. V'nimsa shoichta shalei l'tzayrach. And as a right, and that will be like a tercha, a shechita that's not necessary. Bishlei mishah behemas. Okay, now what about other animals? Dove's question. Bishlei mishah behemas afagav dimachmirin anafshin ubat kinon miu samkinon aruba. V'roi behemas eina treifus. So hakamai. Roi behemas are not treifus. Therefore, and that we're machmir to check if we do in other areas. But again, so here's the shaila: are we machzik areyas in this thing or not? According to Elazar of Yana. Amalei. So Reb Zera answered Reb Yirmiyah. Reb Zera answered Reb Yirmiyah. What did he say? He said, Tanina, you learned the answer to it. Why did we learn? Only the Gemara could do this. Ein mal b'nes harafim litzos behem. You can't go ahead and heat up a tile for the purpose of cooking on top of it. V'avinam bo miyest ma'ika avid. What did you do wrong by heating up a tile? What's the possible problem that heating up a tile? V'amar Rabbi Rav Chana, Am Rabbi Yochanan. What are we dealing with over here? We're dealing with brand new tiles. If they should you have to go ahead and check. So let's be pushed to the shaila. Just like you cannot go ahead and take a tile that hasn't been proven worthy of accepting heat, and therefore on yontif we won't allow you to heat it up because maybe it'll break. So too, this animal on yontif, the chicken on yontif, since you hold you need a bedika after Risa Kevarim, which is not a problem anymore because you waited 24 hours, but you still need a bedika, maybe some other reyasa, so too you won't be able to check. That's the tzushtel. Only the Gemara could tzushtel check is this. Very interesting tzushtel. Very interesting.
Waiting the 24 hours, push it over to make it right. Yes.
No. Not according to these two. These two say that you're still checking. You need both. You need both. You need a bedika after the shechita. That's what it says. So loit is man the omrim that you need a bedika. Is that bedika, this reyes of the bedika, enough that you shouldn't shecht? Because maybe it'll be what? Be found a treifa, and you won't be able to go ahead and eat it. So we answered, guess what? No problem. You can't do it. You know why? How you know you can't do it? Because the tiles you can't do. Because the tiles may prove not to be able to accept the heat and they'll break. And this will prove to be a chicken. Now what? That has a treifa. Very interesting teretz. And for the Gemara, guess what? You have no raya. I had a different gersa. Amalei, I learned the reason they should tzarich l'chasman masnin Allah. The reason you have to go ahead and the reason you cannot go ahead and heat up a tile. You know why? It's because it finishes the tile. It's like the klicheres in the kiln. It finishes it off. It has nothing to do with bedika. And the melee wad, it has no relevance to the shiloh whatsoever. By chicken. Very interesting. Fascinating. Fascinating. Tanya. Echa maybe SR. It's speaking about Shabbos, guys. Shabbos. Echa maybe SR, where the person brings the fire. Echa maybe SR eitzim, where the person brings the eitzim. The echad seifes es hakadera is someone who rests the pot on top. The echad maybe es hamayim, one person brings the mayim to be cooking the pot. The echad noisim b'soichei tavlin is someone puts the spice in the pot. The echad megis, right, and one stirs the pot. Kul and chayaf, and they're all chayaf for chil Shabbos. Oh, let's go through each one. A person who brings the fire, Rashi says, when you're walking, it fans the flame. When you're walking, the act of walking fans the flame. So therefore, you be chayaf avara. Lighting the eitzim yichayif avara. The Gemara is going to ask, why are you chayiv for putting a pot? What is some malacha? What af malacha you ever putting on a pot? And mayim and tavlin is bishul. Okay, now, Vatanya achron chayiv for kulam peturim. How can you tell me the chayiv? We learned only the last one is chayiv and everyone else is potter. Says only kasha is not a problem. Hadeh yaisi or meikara. When are you chayiv? The or was there from before. If the or was there from before, then each and every person was doing a malacha. However, if you put water in a cold pot, you put spices in a cold pot, right? And there's no fire there, then only the last one who brings the fire will be chayiv. Fred the Gemara. And you're wondering why this is brought in, you'll find out in a second. Bishlema kulak of the Maisa, very good, all of them did a Maisa. When the fire is there earlier, they all did a Maisa. Ella Seifer says, my coffee. When he went ahead and put the pot there, what did he do? So Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, you know what we're speaking about? We're speaking about a new pot, right? But the same thing, right? It's libur ofim. According to one opinion, it might crack. According to the other opinion, it's finishing off. It hardens it. It hardens, and that's why we brought this in.
That's why it's not Shnayim Shesu also, because each one was doing their own malacha.
Shnayim Shesu? Where would the Shnayim Shesu be over here?
The two guys, they're doing. They're both putting the pot out. But each
it does. It's not two. They're doing it individually. Each person's doing it. Yeah, each person doing it individually. Even Shnayim Shesu is two people doing malacha.
Putting the pot out together, holding
right. Yeah, that's not two shton over here. Turn up on it. Taner v'kirayim chadashim, hari hein kechol hakelim hanitolim b'chatzir. A tanner is a stove that holds one. Kirayim holds two. New, chadashim, brand new. Hari hein kechol hakelim hanitolim b'chatzir. Meaning, guys, when you use the word kelim hanitolim, means it's not muktzah. It's not muktzah. Why is it not muktzah? Because even if you don't cook in it, you can carry something in it. You can use it as a basket, right? In other words, a kli has a shem kli. If something has a shem kli, it's not muktzah. It's not muktzah. Why? Even though you're not using it for cooking, you could use it to carry something. You could use it for cold water. You could use it for a multitude of things, right? Aval ein soichem isa shemen. You can't go ahead and rub oil on them to shine them up. Ein toshem my son b'matlis. You can't polish it with a cloth. This would be like thick and clean. This is like finishing it up. Ve'im afigan isa b'tzoinin, and you can't put it in hot water to go ahead and harden it. In order to harden it. The imbish filafos, however, if it's for the purpose of baking, in other words, this whole din of hardening something is if you're hardening it for a use later on. But if b'shas you're using it hardens, then it's okay. There's a difference, right? In other words, here the imbish filafos, meaning I have a brand new kli, I'm using it on a fire. It is being hardened. As long as you're having it's being used to cook, then it's not a problem. The case of ra'afim of the tzoyna of the tiles was not for now, for later. For later. That's the difference that the Ran explains the difference between over here and before. Or else you got a problem. What do you mean? You just told me you can't go ahead and finish off a kli. Hey, you're finishing off a kli. Well, the answer is you're finishing off the kli. B'shas you're doing an afiyah. B'shas you're doing baking. Okay, you can finish off the kli. Mashen came out. If it's just for the purpose of making the kli, that you can't do. But since la'afis you're going ahead and baking over here, you're okay. Molgin esaroish v'esaraglayim. In other words, again, you're allowed to shecht. You ever see animals? They're very hairy. So what do you got to do? What do you do? We go to Glatma, right? we go to Glatma.
This is what you got to like that.
So Molgin esaroish. Yeah, it's kitty day. Whatever. Maybe they took over. We were gone. They took over. Like Cheska Sabatim. Like the squatters' rights, right? So now, Mulgan as a Rosh Vesarglayim, you can go ahead and scald the Rosh Reglayim to remove the hair. Or you can singe them using an R. My father always showed me that had a blowtorch. The chickens were so hairy, we were just like, yeah. Yeah, in one zone we had you know, you can't have how much chickens we had, like, you know. So we had a blowtorch, and it was.
We do that to the food at the service. We take blowtorch to top of the food.
Aval ein teufel mesav b'charsis. You can't go ahead and put on like a pottery, flay adama, flay besid. These all things that what tanners would do, guys. This seems like you're tanning the hide. The tanning. Sima abed. You can't cut off the hair with a scissor, because then it appears if you're cutting the hair for the purpose of the hair. They're not for the tzarech. That's not echel nefesh. Let's say you have a special scissors to cut the vegetables, right? Don't use that special scissors. If you have a detached vegetable, don't go ahead and use it, because people are going to think that what you you detached it from the ground. So you don't use that. It's special scissors. You can go ahead and be attacking this kundis. These are vegetables that take a tremendously long period of time to cook. Right? So it's not a tircha. Rashi says purni is like a furnace. In other words, let's say you have a lot of people and it's not enough. The regular kira, you know, a tanner, you need more, so you're able to go ahead and use this purni. That we have Masechta Shabbos. This samovar, you're able to go ahead and cook hot water in it. You can't bake in a new purni. Maybe it'll crack. And Rashi says the kol shekein yeshanim. I guess it wasn't made for the purpose of cooking. So he says this. In other words, the new one is like, it's not like it's been established. I usually new you can't use, but old you could. Over here, Rashi says something interesting. He says for kol shekein yeshanim that you can't. Okay, all these are dinim that again brought down a Shulchan Aruch that we can't do. But again, it's so interesting how when the Gemara was written, all these were halacha l'maisa. Now you got to go out one. When was the last time you singed the hair off an animal? I mean, I've done it. But, I mean, in most of the days I did it, but not recently. Except when I found that raccoon hair on my. You know what? The Smiths use bellows. It's a new. You remember what a bellows is?
Like in the 40s.
It blows the fire, so it heats up, right. It goes like that, and it blows the fire, and it makes it hotter. You put more oxygen, so it makes it hotter. So you can't go ahead and blow with the bellows. You could use a tube. So nafuach seems like you're doing malach, like you're an artisan, but shvaferes is what is a tube. It's not the normal way, and therefore it's enough of a shinoi. You can't go ahead and repair a spit, that'd be tikkun mana. You can't make a point out of it. Okay, all I'll tikkun mana. Okay, we had the other day, fellas, that remember you have a griddle and you can't push the fish directly on the griddle because it's going to burn. So what they do is they use parchment paper, or they would use a kli of tile. They would use it, right? So here you have a reed. You cut the reed and you peel it out this way, and you're not allowed to do that in order to go ahead and put it on the fire to go ahead and protect the maliach, the salted fish, from the fire. You can't use it as a kli. This would be actually making a kli, right? Look at this Rashi, guys, because he says a clown. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines to the bottom. You can't go ahead and split a reed. Losses karmiosov, to take its shell, tachas hamliach, underneath the salted fish, ala askala, on the griddle. Shoisa kli, because you're making a kli. The chomidi the ovid lishtamish boy have a tikkun kli. Anything that you go ahead and do for the purpose of a mishtamish is what is tikkun kli. Okay. Tarabanan. Okay. Eimap soyin esa egois bimatlis. You take a cloth, put in the nuts, and hit it against the wall, hit against a hard object. Right? You could do that. You do that. We're not worried. I'm not worried that maybe it's going to rip. Rashi says that feel in the grass, even if it does rip, it's not ripping for the purpose of sewing, which is the issur out of kriya. Yeah, again, it's I don't know if it's makalko. Again, it's kareya is an issur, like any kareya. Any kareya.
They open up anything then on Shabbos because it's makalko, right?
Fine. What are you talking about Hasidim? I know nothing, zero about Hasidus. I know nothing about Hasidus. Zero. Mamish zero. You cannot believe how little I know about it. Zero. Mamish zero. Okay. Now this Mishnah is really interesting because it's classic Zrayim. It's somehow where the Hilchos Yontif meets Zriya. It's classic stuff. Okay, so we're going to say the Mishnah, and then the Gemara is going to bring in a bunch of things. I'll give you a good hakdama then. Rabbi Eliezer, who had said a kula earlier, Rabbi Eliezer had said a kula that you can take a kisame and use it as a splinter. He said in addition, Rashi says that it's out of order, but he said other kula. Now muktzah over here means not like when we used muktzah the last time. The last time we said muktzah meant it's a back lot that's closed off, and it's where you store stuff. Muktzah over here means it's muktzah, meaning it's something that if you did have in mind, it would be okay to use, but if you don't have in mind, then you can't. Guys, there's different levels of muktzah, right? Guys, there's different levels of muktzah. There's certain things that are muktzah machmas. I want to ask you a question. You have in mind to go ahead and carry a rock on Shabbos for no other reason. It's still muktzah. You can't do it. You have in mind to carry a stick on Shabbos. It's muktzah. Your das doesn't make it less muktzah. It's muktzah. You have a fruit. Now, stam fruit is not muktzah. What happens if it's in a semi-state, meaning you've decided to dry it out in the sun, and you're drying it out? Then it is muktzah because you makatza das because you don't think you can eat it. That's what we're discussing. Something where my das would go ahead and allow me to eat it or not. That's the type of muktzah that's under discussion over here. So therefore, Avram, is that you or a picture of you? Oh, it's you. It's really you. Okay, because you had that Steve Geller like emotionless look, like you're not moving anywhere. It's amazing. He didn't move, right? Like look at him. Remember, it's amazing. You're not even eating. Okay, anyway. Says Rabbi Eliezer, a person can stand. So let's say we have this cut figs or grapes or raisin. You're making grapes. We saw earlier in the Masechta that some people eat it, some people won't. For the people who eat it, right, it's not muktzah. For the people who don't eat it, it is muktzah. So therefore, look at Rashi. Muktzah, hatzarech hazmana, that requires zimun, preparation in order to eat. The hazmana may elislay, and hazmana would help. Kigoin achse v'loy achse. It's seen to some and not the others. Damar bein sudden that we said a few blot ago. Okay, so that that's not dumb I gave you. It's the type of thing where your zimun, your kivun would go ahead and make a difference. Your kivun would make a difference. So stand by Amid Beis, stand by this fruit. Erev Shabbos b'Shvius, Erev Shabbos in the Shemitah year. V'omer and say, Mikan ani oichel. I'm eating from there. L'macha tomorrow. It's not enough to go ahead and say, but you have to say Ad Shei Yershaim. You have to go ahead and make some type of roshim. You have to go ahead and make some type of action. In addition, you can't say mikan, but you have to be more specific. The yomer mikan v'adkan, from here until there. In other words, you have to designate physically and verbally. But according to Rabbi Eliezer, all you have to do is designate verbally, and even your verbal designation is more ambiguous because you only said mikan. Because guys, this is a machloikus of breira. Do you say breira or not? Rabbi Eliezer holds yesh breira, and therefore what? The next day, wherever you eat, is huvra davul mafreya. That was what I was mazim the night before. That's what I prepared the night before. And the chumol no ain breira. You have to not only go make a roshim, but you have to say specifically mikan viad kan specifically because they hold ain breira. They hold ain breira. That's the machlokas between the two. That's the machlokas between the two. Now, what's the problem? What's the shemitah? What is? Okay, let's say it's if it's only a din in hazmana, what does it have whatsoever to do with shemitah, right? Like, oh, that's the problem. In other words, we had a machlokas, guys. Turn back to Daf Yod. See, the great thing about Beitzah is even all the Yotzro guys have it. It's only one Masechta, so even all the Yotzro guys have it. Okay? Turn back to Daf Yod. This is very good akdama. Beishama Yarmim, the Mishnah, Layitel, a person shouldn't take the geisleis, the birds, Elam Kain Nanei Mibayayim, unless he did an action, right? Erev Yontif, he went ahead and picked them up and shook them. He can stand, I'm taking this, I'm taking this. That was the Shiloh of Breira. That was the Shiloh of Breira, right? So if this whole Shiloh is a Breira Shiloh, what are you bringing Shemitah? Ma Shemitah Eitzel Breira. What's going on over here?
Isn't it like with Shammai holds, you're taking with your hands, you're not just saying.
So the Chacham said at Sheyirshon. The Chacham said at Sheyirshon until you go ahead and do something. And my kasha is it's my Gemara's kasha. The kasha is, I'm trying to illustrate it, is if you're bringing in Shemitah, there must be something else besides Breira, because if it was only Breira, we did this already. If it was only Breira, we did it in Daf Yud. In other words, Breira, you need a hachana, and if Breira is going to go ahead and do the hachana, it seems okay. Whether you have to say Adkan, shaking it, Yersham, that l'chayrit. So it must be to something else. What's that something else, guys? Something else is when you have something that is in the field, that's in a place, that's cut up, you don't have a Gemar Malacha yet. By cutting it up and drawing it out, you're showing that what? You're showing that what? That it's not a Gemar Malacha. If something doesn't have a Gemar Malacha, then it's not, you're not chayv in Shumas Maisa.
Bring it into the house.
If something doesn't have a Gemar Malacha, you can eat a chilas aroy. You can eat it temporary. There's no chiyuv Shumas Maisa. Okay, now in a Shemitah year, there's no din of Shumas Maisa. So the fact that we're introducing Er Shabbos B'Shvius, that you're introducing this in a Shemitah year, there's something else besides Breira coming into play. Coming into play is I have to remove the chiyuv of what? Of Shumas Maisa. Not Shemitah. Shemitah is lachla. Don't get the Shemitah is lachla. This is a Shumas Maisa dikadin. It's not a Shemitah dikadin. All Shemitah does hit back is to go and take off the problem of Shumas Maisa. Okay?
I thought we were going to Shabbos routes.
We're going to get there. We're going to get there. It's Erev Shabbos.
No, because Shabbos is
Because you can't take off Chumas and Maisa on Shabbos. Because you can't take off. We can't take off Chumas and Maisa on Shabbos. You can't take off Chumas and Maisa on Shabbos. So therefore, it's a problem of. It has to be in a Shemitah year. In other words, what are the various problems over here, guys? A Muktzah problem and a Maisa problem. So for the Muktzah problem, that I'm taking off either through a Dibur alone, according to Rabbi Eliezer, or according to the Chachamim, an act of Rishum, an act, or a more specific Dibur of Mikan Bakan. That would take care of the Muktzah problem. What takes care of the Maisa problem is the fact that it's a Shemitah year, and Shemitah is not Chayiv and Shumas Maisa. Now, if you'll ask the following, if it's not Nigma Malacha, there's no Shemitah problem whatsoever anyway, right? Guys, if no Nigma Malacha, there's no Chumas Maisa, no Chumas Maisa problem anyway. Good? So that's what we're going to discuss. Okay, let's go. Let's outside. Guys, Yediyah, we've seen many times. There's no Chiyuv Chumas Maisa until Gemar Malacha. In addition, you need Roy Pnei Abayis. You need it to be in your chutzner or to see the face of the house. If you do a harama, if you bring it in some subterfugical way, right? You bring it in such a way, then you'll take off the Mechav Chumas Maisa. Now, over here, the discussion is the only din of Roy Pnei Abayis is when it has a Gemar Malacha. If it doesn't have a Gemar Malacha, then I feel Roy Pnei Abayis not. It has to have either one or the other. Okay? So let's see inside what the Shaila is. Says the Gemara. Tanan Hassam. We learned over there in the Sefta Maisers. Tinoikis shetomnu te'enim me'er Shabbos. A tinoikis means a kid. Doesn't mean a baby. A child that hid te'enim erev Shabbos. Now, guys, stam te'enim is gemar malacha. When you say figs, it's gemar malacha. I mean, you pick the figs, and there they are. You hid him erev Shabbos, the shakhu, and he forgot. V'loy asru, and he didn't go ahead and take off ma'aser l'moitz. Okay, so where is it, guys? In the house or in the field? Look at Rashi. One word. Tinoike shetom l'teinim b'sadeh. So what do I have? Let's go, guys, outside. Since it's a te'ena, there was gemar malacha, but it wasn't for roi pnei abayis because it's still in the field. Good. So therefore, what do we know? Are you chayiv in shumas ma'aser or not? Could you eat? Since it's not chayiv yet, could you eat a sudas aroi? You could. Good. So therefore, now what happened? On Shabbos, he went ahead, he hid them, and then he forgot them. Comes Motzei Shabbos, lo yoichlu, you can't eat them, elim kain asru, unless you take off ma'aser. Well, you got a kasha, guys. What act over here happened that made me mechuyev in ma'aser? V'tanan nami, hamavir te'enim b'chatseroi, sabun spreads te'enim in his chatzer, licktzais to go ahead and dry out. So, guys, this is what davish shawatsha. No gemar malacha, no gemar malacha. Banu b'nei beisay oich l'meihem aroi upturim and depata. So, what do you see? Buy something that's gemar malacha in the sada, some way, somehow, you chayiv in ma'aser. Something that does not have a gemar malacha in the chatzar, even though it's roi pnei abayis, the chatzar is roi pnei abayis, still yipata. Why? Because they didn't have a gemar malacha. Now, Fred the Gemara, boy minei rava mir of Nachman, Shabbos mahu shetikava muktzah lemaisa. Shabbos, what's the din? Can Shabbos be koiveya something that what is loy nigmru malacha? We know chatzar can't. We know chatzar can't because the dried fruit in the chatzar you still could eat. It's pata. We know if it's gemar malacha in the field, it's Shabbos l'chayra could. Shabbos, in other words, guys, what happened in the first case? The tinoik hid it. When did he hide it? Erev Shabbos. Motzei Shabbos, you had to take off ma'aser, despite the fact that it was never roi pnei abayis. Because Shabbos was kaiveya achila, the shem achila. Shabbos, when it's a gemar malacha, Shabbos, when it's a te'ena, does the job. Chatzar, when it's not a te'ena, when it's cut, does not do the job. What about Shabbos le'inyan te'ena that's cut? What about Shabbos that something does not have a gemar malacha? Is it more powerful than chatzar and it would be kaiveya, or it's the same as chatzar and it won't be kaiveya? That's the Gemara Shaila. That's a lamdish Gemara. Guys, this idea is throughout Shas. This idea comes one more time, guys. One more time. Listen to the Shaila. Anything that has a gemar malacha and roi pnei abayis, chayiv. Lacking one or the other, not chayiv. Okay, so te'ena has gemar malacha, but in our case, it's still in the field. Chatzar is speaking about where you spread it out. You don't have gemar malacha, but it's roi pnei abayis. Okay, so each one is missing one or the other. We saw that Shabbos overcame the fact that it wasn't roi pnei abayis. It's still in the field, and yet you chayiv because it was Shabbos. Can Shabbos do that for a fig that's cut? Can it do it for something that is not nigmar malacha? We know it can do it for something that it has gemar malacha. We know that's the case of the tinoik. It was gemar malacha. It was a teina. What about I do an action that shows I don't want it to be gemar malacha? I'm cutting it and putting it out in the sun to dry. Can Shabbos is it more than chatzah? We know chatzah doesn't do the job. It's still pater, as the Mishnah Maasros just said in Perek Gimel and Maasros. Question over here: what is Shabbos? That's the Shiloh. Now, what does it have to do with our Mishnah? It's gavaldik. Mamish, it's super gavaldik. Super gavaldik. The natives are getting restless. Now, says the Gemara. Shabbos Moshe Tikva Muktzah. What's the din of Shabbos to be in Kaveh guy? Muktzah is another name for it doesn't have a gemar malacha. Right? Muktzah, it doesn't have a gemar malacha. It's in the field drying. That's those words Rashi said is totally extra. Because once you said muktzah, you know it's davar shleim malachta. Me amrinan, do we say kivin dechsiv v'karas l'Shabbos einig? Right now it has what? It's the shem aroi. It has a shem keva einig. Kava Shabbos is kaveya. Fa'afilu b'davar shleim nigmar malachta. Even by what? Cut figs. Dilma b'davar shleim nigmar malachta kavas. Like the case of the tinoik. B'davar shleim nigmar malachta. Like the cut figs. Like kava. Guys, good? Clear? Guys, good, right? Give me a thumbs. Give me good.
Oh, thumbs?
Hmm? Not so good, Avi Rosenzweig?
He likes that we're talking about Shemitah and the Shemitah year. That's what he likes.
But it's not about Shemitah. No, it's not about Shemitah at all. It's not about Shemitah at all. The Shemitah just is part of Maisa. Again, the Zroyim thing, this thing of Roy Pnei Abayis, the Gemara Malacha, this is my even though I know what I'm talking about now, I'm prone to forget. It's something that I told you, it's my Waterloo. Zroyim is my Waterloo. Again, let's go one more time. When is there total chiyah for Chumas Maisa? We've got two things. One, Gemara Malacha, two, Roy Pnei Abayis. Let's say it only has one of them, then it's not. So the case of the tinoik in the field, it only had one. It was Gemara Malacha, but it didn't have what? Roy Pnei Abayis. The second case in the Chutzner, it only had one. It was Roy Pnei Abayis, but it did not have what? It did not have Gemara Malacha. Good. So why in the first case it only had one, a Yechayev? Because of Shabbos. Shabbos goes ahead by something that's a Taina that has Gemara Malacha and makes it like Roy Pnei Abayis. It makes it like two. That's what Shabbos can do. Question: what about the case where it's not Nigmar Malacha and the case where it's still cut? We want to know. We know Chatzah can't do the job. We know Chatzah is still a part from Chumas Maisa. What about Shabbos when it comes to cut figs? By cut figs, which is not Gemara Malacha, can Shabbos be Kaveh or not? That's the Shabbos. That's the Shabbos. I think that works. Okay. Says the Gemara. Yeah. What? Shabbos is, if you look at Rashi, look, yeah, okay. So look at Rashi. The Rashi Tinoik Shetamnu Teina, right? You see what it says? B'Seichos HaPoilim Peches. Achila Shabbos Chashuva, va'arai Shelo Harihu Keva. It's a chashuv. So the Achila Sarai of Shabbos is Keva. Vayhutnu L'Achila Shabbos. That's the story back. That the chashivas of it elevates it from a snack to a meal. It's kishmak, right? That's you have to underline that. Yeah, I have to get you on that side. I tell you, you want to steig in learning? Got to get rid of the article side. Okay, now. Ibid. Duchsik, yeah. And no one knew what Ibid was. It was like I asked, I teach Bereshis. I said, Ma'oris, what's the Omer? The girl said, luminary.
We didn't know those words in ours. We couldn't Google it either.
Okay, very good shmat. Okay, so Amalei, so he told him, so Rav Nachman told Rava, Shabbos kavas bein b'dava shenigma malachtoi, whether it's something that what as Gemara Malacha, bein b'dava shenigma malachtoi. He wants to be pushed to the Shiloh. He wants to be pushed to the Shiloh. I don't know what it is, but right now we daven Ma'ariv already. Okay, yeah, we daven already. So go upstairs. Okay, now, so Amalei. So now he's told him the Amish Shabbos Tumya de Chatzar. Why don't you say Shabbos Tumya de Chatzar? My Chatzar Eina Kavas Ela B'Dav Shnigma Malachta. You need both things. Av Shabbos like Tikva Ela B'Dav Shnigma Malachta. So why is Shabbos better than Chatzar? Because it works even for cut figs. So Amalei. So Rav Nachman told him, Limud Orach Hu B'Yadeinu. We have a Limud Orach. We have a long time learning Mesaira Shabbos Kavas Bein B'Dav Shnigma Malachta. Whether it's regular figs. Where it's cut figs, you're waiting. We have such a now. What in the world does this have to do with all of a sudden in Maisa, Roisha Ruba Maisa, nothing to do with Hilchos Yontif, right? Zero. What does it do? Af Anana Mitina. Say Amar Mazutra, Bered Rav Nachman. Says Mazutra and Rav Nachman. We also learned that then. V'oid Amar Rebbe Eliezer. Oimid Adam ala Muktzah Erev Shabbos. A person can stand on the Muktzah Erev Shabbos. B'shviyas. Good. Now, why did you have to learn shviyas, guys? To take care of which problem? To take care of which problem?
The mice and fruit, it's the mice.
What? The mice. Oh, what happens if it was a regular Shabbos?
You have Kevin, so you
Oh, that's Uriah. Guys, the fact that it's a Shemitah year, that's the whole reason you put that it works. I took care of my muktzah problem. Why? By Hasmana. Whether it was what I said or what my Roshim, let's not get into the Brave Shaila, right? They took care. I was mazimit. I took care. I have cut figs in the field. I stood up by the cut figs and I said, the west side, exactly. I'm going to eat from there. That took care of muktzah, right? But why did I have to learn Shemitah? Because if without Shemitah, I'd have another problem. I won't be able to eat from it because it's Chayiv and Shumas and Maisa. If it's Chayiv and Shumas, I can't separate that on Shabbos. It's thick in mana. Why would it be the Chayiv and Shumas and Maisa? It's in the field. Elamah. It must be Shabbos is Kaiveya, and that's your raya from our Mishnah. One more time. It's super long. This it's gewaldig. Guys, watch. You have two problems: a muktzah problem and a maisa problem. Okay, neither is. If it comes Shabbos, you can't eat muktzah, something that I was mekatze das, and you can't shade up trumas u'maisa. You can't separate trumas u'maisa on Shabbos. It's like taking money. You're fixing something. It's k'zeri d'Rabbana. So now, says our Mishnah, a person can stand up erev Shabbos in a Shemitah year and say, "I'm going to take from X. I took care of the muktzah when I said I'm going to eat, and since it's Shvius, I don't have a problem of trumas u'maisa. What happens if it wasn't Shvius? What happens if it wasn't Shvius? You'd have a problem with trumas u'maisa, right? That's why it's learning Shvius, because without Shvius, you would have now. Why would you have a trumas u'maisa problem, guys? Where are these cuts? These are in the Sadeh. You're standing up in these on the muktzah. They're not. They don't have to be in the field. They're muktzah. They're not nigma malacha. They're not nigma malacha, guys. It's not in the field. It's in the chutzner, but it's cut. Since I cut it, I show it's not gemar malacha. We said a chutzner not gemar malacha is pata, right? Over here, you'd be chayiv. The only reason you're pata is because it's shmita. If it wasn't shmita, you'd be chayiv. Why would you be chayiv? It only has one of the tanoim. It only has the tana of tzroi pnei abayis. It's still muktzah. It's still cut. It must be Shabbos goes ahead and is kaiveya that you be chayiv in shumas u'maisa, and therefore you have a raya to Rav Nachman's thing. Beautiful. Says the Gemara inside. A person can stand by. He can stand by in his chutzner on drying figs, erev Shabbos v'shvius, and say, "I want from this pot." Time with the shvius. The reason he's able to do it is it's shvius. The lav bare surahu. So you don't have a ma'isa problem. Habishar shani shavua. If it was not the shemitah year, hachinami the asa. It would be asa. Why? Because you would be chayv and shumas ma'isa, which you can take off on Shabbos. My time, alam mishum the Shabbos kave'ala. It's a muktzah. It's not gemar malacha. So it must be that it's potter. It must be that when you say a chayev, what transpired to make it chayev? It must be Shabbos, which is a raya to the limud aruch of Rav Nachman. Right? Machne shais. Says the Gemara, shiny hasam. It's different over there by the case of Rabbi Eliezer. Kimin the amar mikan ani oichel lemachar kibul lo alave. Oh, you hear this, guys? By going ahead and saying, I'm going to eat over there, by saying eating over there, that makes it a chilas keva. That makes it a chilas keva, right? By saying I'm going to eat over there, that makes it a chilas keva. So, no, you don't, right. In other words, Shabbos is not, you don't have a proof. Your hope, in other words, I need something to take off, make it chayiv and shumas u'maisa. Good? I thought it's Shabbos. The answer is no, it's not Shabbos. It can be just the achila, which leads us to a great question. So then why does Gemara, if that's not the case with Shabbos, you can say even bafil b'chol, you have a problem. Stay tuned.
I was laughing when you said the thing with the